This video will show you how to replace the front lower control arm on a Cadillac CTS. This will be located behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. Let's get ready to remove our front wheel. To do that, the first thing we have to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. Once you've done that, you're going to remove all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts so we can get the wheel off of here. Now that we have the wheel off, let's make our way along the inboard side, the back side of the brakes. This is where we can see where our front sway bar link connects to our lower control arm. We'll be using a 15mm for this mounting nut. What you're going to find when you attempt to loosen this is typically the stud of the sway bar link is going to spin. If you are looking in the center of the stud, you're going to find an area for an Allen head socket. For this, you want to use a 5mm Allen head socket to help prevent that stud from spinning while you remove the mounting nut. First, I'm going to attempt to break it free. So once it did break free, as I mentioned, it did spin, so I'm just going to hold on to this while I continue on removing that nut. I'm going to be using a 15mm ratcheting wrench, and I have my 5mm Allen head socket directly in the center on that shaft. Remove that. There's our mounting nut. Now we can take hold of the sway bar link and slide it out of position. Now that we have the sway bar link dislodged, let's focus on the bottom of the front strut where it connects to our lower control arm. You're going to find along the front and along the back, you have a 13mm headed mounting bolt. Let's go ahead and remove the pair. I'm using a swivel socket for this. Well, that bolt broke, which is common on these. That's okay, we're replacing the control arm. We just need a mounting bolt that matches. We'll set that aside, continue on to the rearward bolt. Let's make sure we dislodge our ABS wheel speed sensor wire from along the control arm. You're going to find that there's 3 mounting points. This one down inside the control arm here, and then there's a couple others as we make our way towards the power steering rack. So I'm just going to pry this out of place. You can use a pry bar. I'm using a trim tool. Let's make our way across to the next one. This one's underneath the power steering rack. Let's make our way to the next one. Now that we have that dislodged, let's focus on disconnecting the outer tie rod end from our steering knuckle. We're using an 18mm for our mounting nut. Now you may find that the tie rod end slides out of place. Other times you have to use a puller of some sort. Either way, a quick inspection of the boot to confirm there's no damage. This looks good. Now that we have the outer tie rod end separated, we have a clear view of the lower ball joint mounting nut. Now I like to use a wire brush on this to clean the threads. I'll use some penetrant. We're going to have to use a 21mm to loosen this mounting nut. As you can tell, there's minimal space in this area for a socket, so you do want to use a ratcheting wrench if necessary. Up along the top of the ball joint stud, you can use a 10mm wrench as well. Let's just start that back on a couple threads. Now to separate the ball joint, you can either use a ball joint puller, or if you have a pickle fork and a hammer, you can use that as well. I'm just going to come in between this area. I'm going to start tapping on my pickle fork and attempt to separate this. It's exactly what we need to see. Okay, so we have this broken free. We're going to leave the mounting nut on here temporarily. We'll make our way to the inboard hardware. Now we can start removing the control arm from the subframe. As we look at the mounting hardware, you're going to find you have an 18mm headed mounting bolt on the inboard side, on the forward side here. This is going straight forward. Along this area, we have a 21mm mounting nut. I'm going to hold the bolt side with my 18mm wrench and use a 21mm socket over here. Now at this point, I'm going to leave this bolt in here, which will help prevent it from falling while I continue on to the rearward hardware next. Now this mounting nut is going to be inside of this area, just come straight through the rearward port. Okay, so I have some movement from that. Let's continue on removing that mounting bolt. You may have to tap it out of position. Now, if you do have to tap it, obviously we have to come through this area. Your hammer might not necessarily reach, so I'm going to be using a brass punch. We'll tap it through, trying not to cause any damage. We'll just use a hammer, tap this out of place. Now, as we start removing this bolt, keep in mind the control arm may want to swing down. We still have to remove that outer lower ball joint mounting nut. There it is, friend. Prior to installing any brand new part, let's make sure we clean and inspect the mounting area. I'm going to use a wire brush. Let's clean along the subframe mounting points first. We're essentially making sure nothing's rotted or weak or damaged. Now we'll make our way underneath the front strut, under the knuckle where the ball joint would go through, and where the tie rod end would go. Nice. Let's get ready to install that lower control arm. Prior to installing, remove your ball joint mounting nut. You're going to find there's a plastic protective cover. Remove that and dispose of it properly. Let's get this in place. Let's bring this up along the subframe first. Let's get that front bolt in as well. Let's use my rubber mallet. We can tap this into place. This bolt comes through from the rear towards the front. Once you have each of those bolts through, you can start on the hardware. We are not snugging or tightening this yet. There's the forward one. I'll just do the same for the rearward hardware as well. Make our way towards the lower ball joint mounting hardware. Slide that together. Start on your mounting nut. Now we're going to start applying upward pressure. When we apply upward pressure on the lower control arm, we need to attempt to align our lower front strut with the control arm. you can see where the ports would be. We also want to make sure you have your ABS wheel speed sensor wire underneath the front strut assembly, making its way this way. Now it's time for our mounting bolts. I like to use some anti-seize. Just bring those down and through, start them in by hand. We'll do the same for the other one. They're both started in. Let's go ahead and snug them up. The torque for each of these will be 18 foot-pounds. My torque wrench. Same for the other side. After torquing that, while we still have pressure under the lower control arm, let's tighten the lower ball joint mounting nut. Now, if when tightening the mounting nut, you find that the ball joint stud spins, you want to hold on along the top of that ball joint stud. You can either use a wrench or some locking pliers if necessary, whatever's easiest for you. Once you have that snug, we're going to torque it to 30 foot-pounds. After you torque it to 30 foot-pounds, you need to continue an additional 120 degrees. Now, as far as the 120 degrees, we're going to go just under half a turn here. While we still have support underneath the control arm, let's make our way to the inboard hardware, the area that holds the control arm to our subframe. We're going to tighten each piece of hardware and torque it to 100 foot-pounds. And of course, we need to make sure this needs to be at ride height position. There's that one. Let's do the same for the rear. Got my torque wrench. After torquing all that, we can remove support from underneath our lower control arm. Now we can attach our outer tie rod end to the steering knuckle that comes in from the bottom towards the top. Once you have the hardware started on, bottom it out and torque it to 55 foot-pounds. Let's attach the sway bar link to the lower control arm. We're going to pivot this as necessary. Once you have it started through there, go ahead and start on the mounting nut. We'll snug it up, and the torque for that will be 35 foot-pounds. Using my ratcheting wrench for this, 5mm socket directly in the center. Just double check, make sure that's secured in place. Now let's make sure we secure our ABS wheel speed sensor wire. We're going to take this, align it with the ports on the control arm and press it down into the fully seated position. Just give it a wiggle, make sure it's secured. If you need to, you could either replace these parts or you could use a wire tie in most cases. That one in there. Get the next one down inside this port here. This one's a little difficult to see. Press that in as well. Just double check, make sure that's secured in place. One last quick inspection in this area and we can reinstall our wheel. With that in place, we'll continue on to all 5 of our 19mm lug nuts. We'll start them on, get the wheel back on the ground, torque each of them to 100 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. I've got the wheel back on the ground. Let's go ahead and torque these lug nuts to that 100 foot-pounds. Torqued. Okay, friend, we finished the installation of our control arm. The next thing you need to do is take your vehicle for a road test and make sure you get yourself in alignment. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.